The pristine halls of Helix Dynamics Research Facility had never seen such chaos. Dr. Isabella Rivera stood in her laboratory, watching in fascination as golden particles drifted through the air like suspended starlight. Her breakthrough in cellular regeneration therapy, meant to cure degenerative diseases, had instead awakened something far more primal within human DNA. Dr. Rivera. Research assistant Marcus Way burst through the door, his dark eyes wide with panic. The containment systems are failing. The particles, they're replicating faster than we can neutralize them. Isabella's fingers flew across her holographic display, analyzing the rapidly changing data streams. The golden motes weren't just suspended in the air, they were actively seeking out human hosts. Even more alarming, they were transmitting genetic modifications between subjects. "This is impossible," she muttered, watching as Marcus's skin began to shimmer with an iridescent quality. The therapy was designed to target specific genetic markers, not this. Through the observation window, she could see other staff members experiencing similar changes. Raj from IT had developed patches of luminescent scales that pulsed with his heartbeat. Teresa, the security guard, was sprouting elegant ridge-like structures along her forearms that gleamed like mother of pearl. The most fascinating aspect wasn't the physical changes themselves, but how each person's transformation seemed uniquely tailored to their genetic makeup. No two mutations were exactly alike. "Professor." Marcus called out again, his voice carrying a strange harmonious undertone that hadn't been there before. "The military's here. They're setting up a quarantine perimeter." Isabella knew it was already too late for containment. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone to call the CDC, but stopped short when she noticed her own skin beginning to ripple with changes. The golden particles had found her too. High above Earth's atmosphere, hidden behind quantum camouflage fields, First Observer Nyrax watched in horror as their monitoring systems tracked the spread of genetic changes across the planet's surface. This wasn't supposed to happen. Project Genesis had been dormant for millennia, carefully hidden within human DNA by the architects. Central Command, Nyrax transmitted, their neural interfaces pulsing with urgency. "We have a Class 1 evolutionary event in progress. The humans, they've accidentally activated the Genesis protocol." The response was immediate and unprecedented. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council's emergency response fleet broke formation around their hidden base on Europa. Earth had just become the biggest crisis in the galaxy. Back at Helix Dynamics, Isabella was documenting everything she could. The changes were accelerating, but not in the catastrophic way she'd initially feared. Instead, each transformation seemed to follow a precise, almost artistic pattern, as if guided by some ancient blueprint buried in human DNA. "It's beautiful," Marcus whispered, examining his newly transformed hands. His skin had developed intricate patterns that shifted like oil on water, and when he moved, there was a grace to his movements that seemed almost superhuman. The military personnel who had stormed the building were experiencing the changes too. Their commanding officer, Colonel Patricia Reeves, stood in Isabella's lab, watching as her own transformation progressed. Unlike the others, her changes manifested as crystalline growths that caught and refracted light like living diamonds. "Doctor," Reeves said, her voice remarkably steady, "I need you to tell me exactly what we're dealing with here." Isabella gestured to her computer screens, where genetic sequences scrolled past like ancient hieroglyphics. "I designed the therapy to repair damaged DNA sequences. Instead, it's activating dormant genetic codes that shouldn't even exist. These sequences, they're not random mutations. They're too perfect, too structured. It's as if..." "As if what?" Reeves prompted. "As if someone planted them there. Millions of years ago, waiting for the right trigger." Isabella's own transformation was manifesting as neural pathways that glowed beneath her skin like fiber optic cables. And now they're spreading. The particles aren't just airborne anymore, they're transmitting through digital networks, riding our own communications infrastructure. Beyond the lab's windows, golden motes drifted up into the darkening sky, catching the last rays of sunset. Satellites would carry them across the globe. Cell phones would transmit them. Water systems would transport them. By morning, the human race would be changing in ways that would reshape the very definition of humanity. In orbit, Nyrax received a priority message from the Galactic Council. The word scrolled across their neural interface: Project Genesis was never meant to be activated. The architects designed it as a failsafe, a way to elevate a species in case of cosmic catastrophe. Prepare for immediate intervention. Nyrax watched the golden particles rising into Earth's atmosphere, knowing that humanity's first contact with galactic civilization would come far sooner than anyone had planned. The question was, would it be as equals, or as a threat that needed to be contained? The sun set on a world teetering on the edge of transformation, while in the depths of space, an ancient plan set in motion by long-dead architects began to unfold. Humanity's next evolution had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks after the initial outbreak at Helix Dynamics, the world had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. News networks struggled to keep up with the rapidly evolving situation as humanity underwent its greatest change since walking upright. In New York, street artists painted murals with pigments secreted from their own bioluminescent skin. Tokyo's financial district had adapted to traders whose new crystalline growths gave them the ability to process market data at unprecedented speeds. In Rio de Janeiro, people with newly developed webbing between their fingers dominated the professional swimming circuits. At the hastily assembled Global Transformation Research Center in Geneva, Dr. Isabella Rivera faced a wall of screens displaying mutation patterns from around the world. Her own transformation had stabilized, leaving her with neural pathways that glowed beneath her skin like living circuits, and something else, something she hadn't told anyone about yet: she could feel the thoughts of others like whispers in her mind. "The patterns are fascinating," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her colleague whose skin had developed a chameleon-like ability to shift colors with his emotions. Currently, he was a thoughtful shade of blue. Each geographic region is showing distinct clustering of traits. It's as if the mutations are adapting to local environments. Isabella nodded, watching the data streams that only she could fully perceive now. The changes aren't random. They're purposeful. Like they're preparing us for something. In orbit, the situation had become even more complex. First observer Nyrax had been joined by the full Galactic Council Emergency Response Fleet, their massive ships hidden behind sophisticated cloaking technology. The fleet's commander, High Admiral Zex Voral, was not pleased. The Genesis protocol was never meant to be activated. Zex Voral's crystalline form shimmered with anxiety. The architects created it as a safeguard against cosmic extinction events, not as a casual upgrade program for developing species. Nyrax watched Earth's swirling atmosphere, now threaded with golden particles that their sensors could detect entering the upper stratosphere. The humans didn't do this casually, Admiral. They triggered it by accident while trying to heal themselves. Isn't that exactly the kind of species the architects wanted to protect? That's not the point. Zex Voral's crystal facets flashed with frustration. The protocol is changing them too quickly. Their society should be collapsing into chaos. Instead, they're adapting. Innovating. Some of them are already developing capabilities that took other species millennia to achieve. On the streets of London, a group of teenagers demonstrated this adaptation. Their new abilities had turned parkour into an art form, their bodies enhanced with hollow bones and retractable claws that let them scale buildings like urban primates. Police forces worldwide had quickly learned to work with transformed citizens rather than against them, especially after Officer James Chen in Hong Kong had single-handedly stopped a robbery by using his newly developed ability to generate localized electromagnetic fields. Back in Geneva, Isabella received an urgent call from Marcus Way, whose transformation had gifted him with an unprecedented ability to interface with digital systems. "Dr. Rivera, you need to see this. I've been monitoring deep space frequencies, and there's something up there. Something big. Isabella felt it too, a presence in the back of her mind, watching, waiting. The transformed humans with enhanced sensory abilities had been reporting similar feelings for days. "They're here to stop us, aren't they?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Not just them," Marcus replied, his voice tense. "I'm detecting automated systems activating all throughout the solar system. Ancient machines, Doctor. They're waking up." In the Kuiper Belt, an ancient facility stirred to life. Built by the architects millions of years ago, it had waited patiently for the Genesis protocol to activate. Now, as humanity transformed, it began its own programmed response. Massive fabrication systems powered up, beginning to construct something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Colonel Reeves, her crystalline structures now fully developed, strode into Isabella's office. "Doctor, we're picking up massive energy signatures from the outer solar system. Either we're about to meet our makers, or we're about to find out why we were changed," Isabella finished. She could feel it, millions of transformed humans around the world, their new abilities reaching out, connecting, forming something greater than themselves. The Genesis protocol wasn't just changing their bodies, it was preparing them for what came next. In orbit, Nyrax received a priority alert that made their neural matrices freeze in shock. The message was simple but terrifying: Genesis Protocol Stage 2 initiated. Species integration beginning. The real changes, it seemed, were just beginning. As night fell over Geneva, Isabella looked up at the stars and knew that humanity's next challenge wouldn't come from adapting to their new abilities, but from what those abilities were meant to face. The galaxy was about to learn why the architects had left such a powerful gift buried in human DNA, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The Galactic Council's diplomatic vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, its crystalline surface refracting sunlight in impossible patterns. After weeks of debate and mounting panic, the Council had finally decided that direct intervention was their only option. They couldn't have known they were already too late. Isabella Rivera stood among Earth's hastily assembled welcome committee in the Sahara Desert, her luminous neural pathways pulsing with the collected anxiety and excitement of millions of transformed humans worldwide. Through their growing psychic network, she could feel every mind on Earth turning toward this moment. "They're afraid," she said to Colonel Reeves, whose crystalline growths had evolved into a sophisticated organic armor. "I can feel their fear from here. Given how we look now, can you blame them?" Reeves replied, her armor shifting colors in the desert sun. The military leader had become one of the most respected voices in the rapidly evolving human leadership structure, particularly after she demonstrated an ability to generate defensive force fields during a panic-induced riot in Washington. The alien ship landed with impossible grace, stirring not even a grain of sand. As its entry ramp descended, the assembled humans felt a collective intake of breath. High Counselor Vexcaurian emerged, their bioluminescent form floating several inches above the ground, flanked by guards whose bodies seemed to be made of living metal. "Representatives of Earth," Vexcaurian's voice resonated directly in their minds, "we come in response to your unprecedented activation of the Genesis Protocol. We must insist that you—" The High Counselor never finished their sentence. A single golden particle, drifting on the desert breeze, made contact with their exposed skin. The effect was instantaneous. "Containment breach," one of the guards shouted, their metallic form already beginning to ripple with changes. "The protocol, it's not supposed to affect non-human life forms." But it was. The assembled diplomats watched in fascination as the entire alien delegation began to transform. Vexcaurian's bioluminescence shifted through impossible colors as new patterns emerged across their skin. The metal guard surfaces began developing intricate fractal patterns that pulsed with internal energy. In orbit, the emergency response fleet descended into chaos as the golden particles, riding solar winds and magnetic fields, reached their ships. Nyrax, watching from their observation post, felt the changes begin and realized with stunning clarity, this was always meant to happen. Back on Earth, Marcus Way had made a breakthrough. His digital interfaces, now deeply integrated with his transformed nervous system, had finally decoded part of the architect's original plans. Dr. Rivera, his excited transmission reached her during the diplomatic chaos. The protocol, it's not just about changing us. It's about changing everything. The architects, they weren't trying to protect just one species. They were trying to unite them all. Isabella focused her enhanced consciousness, reaching out to touch the minds of the transforming aliens. Instead of fear or anger, she found wonder. The same golden particles that had changed humanity were adapting to each alien species' unique biology, creating something entirely new. This is impossible, Vexcaurian whispered, their form still shifting, still evolving. The genetic barriers between species, the physiological incompatibilities. Your people knew about the Genesis Protocol, Isabella said, stepping forward. But did you ever ask why the architects created it? Why they chose Earth as its cradle? In the Kuiper Belt, the ancient facility's purpose finally became clear. It wasn't building weapons or defenses, it was constructing bridges. Quantum tunnels began opening throughout the solar system, connecting Earth to distant parts of the galaxy through corridors of spacetime that shouldn't have been possible. The transformed aliens were beginning to feel it too, the growing psychic network that connected all transformed beings. Barriers of language, culture, and biology dissolved as a new kind of consciousness emerged, one that transcended individual species. We were wrong, Vexcaurian admitted, their transformed body now resonating in harmony with the humans around them. The protocol wasn't a failsafe. It was the next step. The architects weren't trying to protect us from extinction. They were trying to birth something new. Colonel Reeves stepped forward, her crystalline armor now somehow complementary to the aliens' transformed states. Then perhaps it's time we stopped fighting this change and started understanding why it's happening. Something's coming, isn't it? Something that requires all of us to be more than we were. In orbit, Nyrax watched as the golden particles spread through the fleet, carrying the change to every corner of the galaxy. The ancient machines in the Kuiper Belt hummed with increasing power, preparing for something even the transformed beings couldn't yet comprehend. The architect's true plan was finally unfolding, and as the sun set on humanity's last day as a singular species, the galaxy held its breath. The transformation wasn't just changing what they were, it was changing what they could become, together. And somewhere, in the spaces between stars, something stirred in response. The Genesis Protocol had only been the beginning. The real test of this new, unified form of life was about to begin. Breaking the code. The quantum tunnels connecting Earth to the far reaches of the galaxy pulsed with increasing frequency as the transformed beings learned to navigate their new reality. In the heart of the Global Transformation Research Center, Isabella Rivera and a team of human and alien scientists worked tirelessly to understand the full scope of the architect's plan. Marcus Way, his digital interface capabilities now exponentially enhanced by alien technology, projected a holographic map of the known universe. Golden threads of the Genesis Protocol traced paths between stars like a cosmic nervous system. Look at this pattern, he said, his skin flickering with data streams. The protocol isn't just spreading randomly, it's following specific paths, activating ancient machinery hidden throughout the galaxy. Vexcaurian, their transformed body now a harmony of bioluminescent patterns and crystalline structures, moved through the hologram with practiced grace. The architects seeded these machines billions of years ago. We'd found some before, but never understood their purpose. Now they're all activating at once, Isabella finished. Her enhanced neural pathways allowed her to process the information at unprecedented speeds. But why? What were the architects preparing us for? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the Kuiper Belt facility, Colonel Reeves and a team of transformed explorers had discovered a message encoded in the facility's quantum core. As they activated it, the holographic image of an architect appeared in research centers across the galaxy. The being's form was both beautiful and impossible, suggesting that the architects themselves had undergone their own transformation eons ago. Its message was clear and terrifying. If you are receiving this, the Genesis Protocol has succeeded. Your species have begun the transformation necessary for survival. The barriers between you will fall as you face what comes next. The universe breathes in cycles, and the exhale is coming. Only together will you survive the awakening of the void. Evolution's choice. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place 3 days later. The combined consciousness of transformed humanity and their alien allies detected at first a disturbance in the fabric of spacetime. The ancient machines in the Kuiper belt responded immediately, their purpose finally revealed. They're not factories or weapons, Isabella realized, watching the data with her enhanced senses. They're shields. The architects were building a defense network to protect life itself. The void between galaxies was stirring. Ancient entities, as old as the universe itself, were awakening from eons of slumber. These cosmic beings fed on the energy of entire galaxies, consuming them in cycles as regular as breath. The transformed beings understood at last, the Genesis Protocol wasn't just about evolution or unification. It was about survival. Only beings who could transcend their physical and species limitations would have any hope of standing against the cosmic devourers. In orbit, Nyrax, now transformed beyond their original form, coordinated with the fleet. The ancient machines were activating everywhere, creating a network of quantum shields and reality anchors. But technology alone wouldn't be enough. The architects knew this. Vexcaurian addressed the Unified Council of Transformed Species. The machines are tools, but we, our transformed states, our unified consciousness, we're the weapon. We can face them as one being, one mind, one force. As the first of the cosmic entities approached the galaxy's edge, humanity and their alien allies faced a choice. The transformation had given them power, but it had also given them understanding. They could flee to other galaxies, or they could stand and fight. Isabella stood on the observation deck of the Kuiper Belt facility, watching as golden particles danced between stars. The combined consciousness of trillions of transformed beings flowed through her mind. In that moment, she felt their choice crystallize into certainty. They would stand. Not as humans, not as aliens, but as life itself, evolved and unified. The architects had given them the tools, but the will to survive, to protect not just their own species but all life in the galaxy, that had always been there. The cosmic entity approached, its vast form darkening space itself. But where once there had been countless divided species, now there was unity. The transformed beings rose to meet it, their combined power illuminating the void like a new galaxy being born. As the battle for existence began, Isabella smiled. The greatest transformation hadn't been in their bodies or abilities, but in their understanding. The universe wasn't just a place of cosmic horrors and extinction cycles, it was a place where life could transcend its limitations, where unity could overcome any threat. The Genesis Protocol had done more than prepare them for this moment. It had shown them what they could become together. As the quantum shields flared and the unified consciousness of transformed life met the cosmic horror head-on, one truth became clear: evolution wasn't just about survival of the fittest, but about the power of life to adapt, to unite, and to overcome. The next chapter of existence was beginning, and for the first time since the architects vanished from the galaxy, life was ready to write its own story. The end.